You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Great deal going on right now. You put down $5 on an NFL game, and guess what? If you win, you get $200 in free plays. Make it happen. It's that simple. I utilize it. Brad utilizes it. Everyone utilizes it. All right. We got there's been a lot of doom and gloom lately around Arizona athletics, but you know what? That's not why we're here today. We're here to talk a little bit of U of A football. We're here to talk a little bit of U of A basketball as well. But you know what? When you snap a 20-game losing streak, that means that you have to have one of the dons on of the Tucson scene, and that's Mr. William Brad Allis. So, Brad, first and foremost, did you think that this was going to happen, that Arizona was going to be able to beat Cal, even though they were missing half of their team?
I thought they had a chance to beat Cal if Cal was healthy, just because Cal can't close out football games either. And the way they played on Saturday, had Chase Garber's been there, Arizona's not beating them, but he wasn't. So Arizona, got the win, showed some resolve, made a few plays late. And should there be an asterisk next to it? Maybe. But the fact is, when you look back in a year or two, no one's going to remember that 24 Cal players were missing. No one's going to remember that Arizona had their starting center playing left tackle either, or that, Will Plummer had a cut on his hand bad enough to get stitches. So football's a crazy game, and seems like Arizona football's extra crazy.
Yes, for people that didn't live the Dick Tomey era, and granted, Dick Tomey's teams played at a little bit of a higher level than maybe this was, but this is kind of what a Dick Tomey game felt like when you were playing a good team. That not going to be a lot of first downs, not going to be a lot of scoring, and you know what? It's probably going to be close at the end, and that you hope that you can get out of there with a victory, and that's what Arizona was able to do on a much smaller scale. This was reminiscent of those times, at least for me there, William.
Yeah, and I would say that offensively this whole year has reminded me of some of those classic Dick Tomey teams, but especially, and not that it's discontinued since Dick Tomey was there, but Dick Tomey only played weird games against Cal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was in the stands for the one where Arizona blew the 20-0 lead, where Terry Vaughn picked up the personal foul for trying to push his own teammates back to the sideline. There were weird ties, there were shootouts, there were low-scoring games. So I think it's very fitting that this one was against Cal. The only other team that I think they've had weirder games against might be Oregon. But certainly the Cal series has always been bizarre.
Yep. All right, Brad, we're going to get to some questions already. We got Jesus VAZ, great guy, been a great contributor to the pod. And he says, hey guys, what's your opinion on this? I feel Fish needs to get an offensive coordinator or hand the offense to one next year. I don't go that far yet, Jesus, because here's why. There's just not a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. I think that, if there was talent on that side of the ball, a lot of it, and you're getting these results, I don't know that I would disagree with you. But right now, I think it's a little bit too early to see, or too early to look at. Brad, right now, what is your view from the Fishbowl?
Yeah, it's too early to judge, because I don't know what is a product of the actual play call, what is the quarterback checking into, what is the quarterback missing. We don't have an all 22. It's really easy to say, well, look, he's just throwing those that might be just what the quarterback's taking, because they're not very good. There was a lot of criticism over play calls with Khalil Tate when it was obvious that Khalil Tate was either going to throw an out or a 50-yard bomb because he couldn't read the middle of the field. Even under Rich Rod, who utilized him well. So I think it's a little too early to pass judgment. That being said, I haven't loved what I've seen. I think the Jordan McLeod offense is the closest I have felt to a modern offense.
Right.
But I need to see more. So I can't tell you Jed Fish is a good offensive coordinator or play caller, and I can't really tell you yet he's a bad one. But, if he said, hey, I'm turning it over to Brendan Carroll next season, I wouldn't be devastated. And if he said, I'm going to keep it and we're going to evaluate, and do I think he's still learning as a play caller? Absolutely. But I think I think anything in the Jed Fish era is way too early to pass judgment, yay or nay. because we just don't know with 1 year as a brand new head coach with a depleted roster coming off a weird COVID year. It's just way too early. I've liked some things. I've hated some things, but we'll have to see.
Now, at the quarterback spot, it felt like Jordan McLeod was the only one that, like you said, made it feel like, this was a modern offense, I guess, for lack of a better term, and that it wasn't just horizontal passing; it was vertical passing up the field. And you know what? You were trying to make some plays out there. When you got Will Plummer, when you've got Gunnar Cruz, it didn't really feel like this was a team that was trying to really score points other than maybe just move field position. So again, I'm going to hold off a little bit there, Brad, just because I think with McLeod, even though they ended up losing games, it still felt like the offense had a little bit more of a symmetry going on than maybe with the other two QBs, at least so far.
I think McLeod did two things for you. One, with the ability to run, whether it was a true read option, it was just that read option look because he can run, I think gave Arizona. And it's not that Plummer is not mobile, but Plummer is not a make you miss kind of guy. Plummer has some good north-south speed, but you can't run a lot of that. And two, McLeod just sees the field better. I mean, it's obvious that the guy had played some D1 snaps at South Florida. Is he a great quarterback? No. Is he a good quarterback? I'm not sure. But he's a legit FBS quarterback. I'm not sure he's a Power 5 quarterback. Would I take Anu Solomon over Jordan McLeod? Yeah. Would I take Brandon Dawkins over him? Probably. But the fact is he is the best option they had by the time he got 2 or 3 games into the year. He was behind the 8 ball in terms of getting reps in the spring because he wasn't here. But that being said, I don't think Jordan McLeod's an 8-win quarterback, but I know now that Gunnar Cruz, and unfortunately, as tough as he is, as good a kid as he is, Will Plummer's not either.
Right.
But,
so, let's talk.
They're just limited.
Yeah, so let's talk then. Arizona's been close in a lot of the games this season, whether that was against UCLA before McLeod got hurt, heck, Oregon, this Cal game right here, BYU. I kind of get the feeling that next year, if they get a little bit better play out of the quarterback position, this could be a team that goes from 1 win to four wins, maybe. Again, I know that that's not, maybe what people are looking for, but you got to take baby steps when you're coming off a 20-game losing streak. And if you were to tell me next year that Arizona goes 4-8 or 5-7, I would jump at that there, Brad.
Yeah, Arizona's been into the fourth quarter within striking distance or with a lead, I want to say in all but 2 games, and I think, that was San Diego State, and that was unfortunately Colorado. Previous, during the someone part of the losing streak, they were in a game entering the fourth quarter 3 times. So that's your improvement. Now, we haven't seen the Stoops over Makovic improvement that amounted to, 4 or 5 wins.
Right.
So it's not that drastic of improvement, but he may be inheriting a worse situation as well. So that is the one thing that gives me some credence that things are getting better, is they've been mostly competitive. Now, my argument would also be you shouldn't be in a competitive ball game with NAU, but they were, and unfortunately they lost that one. But I've seen enough baby steps that's what keeps me at least optimistic that the Jed Fish era can still be a success. If they had these results, 1 and whatever, with only 3 close games, then I'd be very worried. And again, I'm not proclaiming this a turnaround yet, but if you tell me next year they're going to win 4 or 5 games, I could believe it. Now, that means they have to get better at the quarterback spot. They have to shore up the offensive line, the safety position, 9 other positions. But I feel better than I did maybe after the San Diego State game.
Okay, so Nick Howard says, is Plummer going to play with the hand injury? I don't know that yet. I'm also kind of at the point, though, with the QBs where whether it's Plummer, whether it's, Luke Ashworth, they're the guys that they've thrown out there, that have gotten consistent snaps outside of Jordan McLeod. And by consistent snaps, I mean throwing the ball 15, 20 times a game, just really aren't, just kind of not that good, just not good enough. And again, by all accounts, these are great kids. So just kind of leave that one at that. Now, the cool thing about being here is that at Go PHNX, AZ Wildcats, we get a lot of really cool guests. And you know what? Every now and then somebody reaches out. So I'm going to be on the Doug Gottlieb podcast here in about an hour or so. So looking forward to that one for sure. I'll be ready to rock and roll. But also want to remind you, too, that this is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook app. Put in code word PHNX. You throw down $5, you get $200 in free plays if you win the one NFL game. And again, what's the worst thing that happens? You lose $5. What's the best thing that happens? You turned it into 200. And you know what? 21 and up, Arizona only. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum of $5 deposit. $1 wager required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. William, did you get any action in this week?
I didn't like it. I didn't like the slate of things. So I'm super conservative. So yeah, I didn't like things. I don't bet on the Chiefs. Was tempted actually to take the Browns and probably should have, but I didn't.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit of U of A hoops. And honestly, anybody that's lived in Arizona knows that Arizona hoops is what has controlled this city and has controlled this state. No offense to ASU fans, but Arizona basketball is what matters out of the major revenue sports. And Arizona basketball, that's for you, Jacob, right there behind the scenes. Arizona basketball, though, is here starting tomorrow night against NAU. Brad, when you're playing an outmatched team, because I've given my opinion on this a lot, what does an observer, an insider like yourself look for? What do you want to see from the Cats tomorrow against the Lumberjacks?
I want to see execution. I want to see a continuation of what we saw in the Eastern New Mexico game, which was, again, a team that was completely overmatched. I want to see Arizona really come out strong. I think a lot of times under Miller more than Lute, but even there was a tendency to play down for a little bit, and then one of the teams would go on the run of death. And I would like to see, how he's using the rotation. I haven't looked at NAU a whole lot. I'm guessing they're smaller up front as they traditionally are. So that would lead me to believe we're going to see maybe a little more Kim Aiken and less Omar Ballo. But, what do we see there? How does Kriisa run the point? Do they share point guard duties? Do they kind of play combo guard with Kyer? Do we see a Pella Larson sighting? So there's a lot of little things I want to see. At the end of the day, you want to see a one-sided victory, and whether that's 18 points, that's 18 points from the 10-minute mark of the first half, or is that 45 points because they go on a run of death somewhere late first half, early second half. I don't know. I'm not so worried about that, but just how sharp do they look? How much do they run the system? How consistent are the guys who should dominate inferior players at those positions?
Yeah, and to me, that's it. And I look at the style of play, too. And I think what's fascinating, and our good friend John Schuster made this point on one of the post games, too, is that a lot of the defense is predicated on offense. You're going to see, and you saw this with Luke. And again, Sean Miller's teams had really good defenses. There's no doubt about it. I mean, statistically, there were 4 or 5 of those teams that were amongst the top 2 or 3 in the nation. But what they didn't really do is they didn't force turnovers. And so it necessitated a stop. It didn't necessitate a transition opportunity. Whereas with Lute's teams, you would see that where you would get a stop, and then, oh, by the way, we got a 3-on-1 fast break going the other way. I get the sense for the first time in quite a while that this is going to be much closer to what we saw under Lute Olson, and that, you know what, there might be some more chances taken, but it's going to be a defense that is going to lead to better offense.
Yeah, if you want a comparison, I would almost say Tomey to Stoops. Stoops' defense was a bend that don't break, keep everyone in front of you. Eventually, you're going to make a mistake and have to punt or settle for a field goal. Whereas Tomey wanted turnovers. Tomey had you jumping routes. Lute had you jumping. If Lute gave up 80 but scored 95, he was happy. Miller wanted to beat you 75-60.
Right.
So if you give up a few layups because you jump a passing lane and miss, I don't think Lloyd's upset. If Koloko and Omar Ballo are blocking shots, but that makes them leave their man and he ends up getting a basket. I don't think he cares if it happens 1 or 2 times a game to get those 3, block shots, which lead to transitions. I think you'll see more points scored against this team, but it may not. I definitely think you're going to see them score more points. If this team isn't averaging in the low 80s, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I would be too. And that's another opportunity. When Arizona gets here, you're going to want to check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And you know what? Code word PHNX, because again, we already talked about some of the deals going on where you put down $5 on an NFL game, you get $200 back in free play. But I think you're going to see a lot of overs in the Arizona games this coming year, William. And that was like with Luke too, where now I wasn't old enough to bet at that time. But the cool thing about Arizona basketball back in the day was even if the over-under was 77 points and you've only got 46, with 12 minutes left, there was a good chance they were going to go on a 22-3 run over about a 5-minute stretch. And that's the kind of stuff that you can look at. You can check out at DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. The season's here. It's here tomorrow. NAU basketball. All right. Let's talk a little bit before we let you go here, Brad. And I look at Arizona hoops this year, and to me, Azuolas Tubelis needs to be the best player on the team. Not saying he's the best NBA prospect, but this is a guy last year that I looked at and I said to myself, okay, sophomore year, Azuolas should be a 17-9 type player with the way that he can maneuver his body around the basket, the physicality that he has. Again, he's not the NBA prospect that a guy like a Ben Mathurin is, but I think this is the guy that needs to at least statistically be the best player on the team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's got to definitely be top 2. And looking at it, he and Mathurin have to be the guys. If they're not, then that either means someone really exceeded expectations or one of these guys did not meet expectations. So I'd be shocked if Tubelis and Mathurin are not the 2 best players, the 2 leading scorers. And hopefully, if Arizona's going to be successful, one of the 2 is in contention, at least briefly mentioned, for Pac-12 Player of the Year. And I think Tubelis may have the easier route because I think he's a matchup nightmare in the Pac-12, which doesn't have a lot of quality bigs, because he's big enough and sturdy enough to bang with legit, 7-footers, but he's also mobile enough and crafty enough that those 6'8" Oregon type, Jordan Bell types,
right, exactly,
don't give him fits. So
right.
I think he's in a unique position, whereas, Omar Ballo can't guard Kim Aiken, and Kim Aiken can't guard Omar Ballo, for the Arizona.
Correct.
But Tubelis can guard both of them, and Tubelis can play against both of them. If he has to step out and shoot over a Ballo type, and I'm using, Ballo as the example, he could. But if he has to go and dominate, Aiken on the inside, which we actually saw a little bit in the red-blue game, where Aiken had some trouble hanging with him, I think we could see that. So I think that's what gives him the advantage maybe over Mathurin, who is very good. And Mathurin's the best pro prospect, at least for the upcoming draft.
No doubt.
But there are 9 similar good players in the Pac-12 who have a similar skill set to Mathurin. A few better, a few worse, but he's not unique. Tubelis is fairly unique in the Pac-12, which could give him the leg up on being that dominant player.
And another guy, too, that is going to be fascinating to watch, and I think that people need to pump the brakes a little bit. I think he's going to be good, but is Kerr Kriisa. Now, anytime you come in with you're a point guard and your name's Kerr, you're going to have some expectations on you. But I think he's going to be a good player for the Cats this year. I haven't watched him, though, whether it was in the exhibition or the red-blue game. He doesn't look to me like he's going to be an all-conference type guy. And I think for Arizona to really take that next step, he needs to be closer to an all-conference type guy. And I just don't see that so far in his development.
No, but what I could see is that he and Kyer together form a backcourt that's not dissimilar from the ones we saw with Nick Johnson at the 2, where he was also kind of a 1.
Right.
Or even when you had Kadeem Allen with, whether it was with McConnell or who he was with, where he can kind of do some point guardy things. So I think the 2-man, and again, Larson may factor into this too. I haven't scouted enough of Larson, but I think you're going to have kind of a dual combo guard offense, because I like a lot of what Kyer does, moving the ball, finding open men, what Kriisa can do in that regard. So I think that's really what you're looking at, is you're looking at, can the Arizona backcourt be a borderline all-conference type backcourt? By committee, can they keep that 2.5 to 1 assist-to-turnover ratio? Can they take care of the ball? Can they find the open guy consistently? Can they make the right decision whether, I think there are games where Kriisa is going to shoot it 3 times and he's going to dish out 7 assists, but there also has to be some games where he's going to have to take the shooting load and he's going to have a mismatch. And that's what I want to see from them. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, the adaptability of this team to the matchups that work.
Yes. Okay. So let's hop in. Let's get a couple questions in here before we bounce. And again, appreciate everybody tuning in to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'll be on with Doug Gottlieb here in a little bit on his podcast. So pretty pumped for that. Be back in the A on there.
Don't mention Lute not offering him a scholarship.
We'll see how it goes for sure.
Maybe don't even mention that Miles got one and he didn't. Yes,
right, for sure. Which I'm sure that he's brought up in the past before.
He has.
Right. So Nick Howard says, "Is this team a tournament team in your opinion?" I 100% think it's a tournament team. And not only that, and I've said it before, I think by the end of the season, Brad, that this can be a back-end top 25 team. I think there's a lot of nice pieces here. Not great pieces, but nice pieces. And I think you're going to see a more aesthetically pleasing brand where Tommy Lloyd lets these guys work in a manner in which, maybe not would have happened in previous years.
I think this team has a chance to be pretty darn good depending on the development of Kriisa and Koloko. Working on a little something for my podcast, comparing them to some of the Miller teams. And if Kriisa and Koloko can be as good as maybe, if they can maximize their ability, I think suddenly the starting lineup of this team becomes very interesting, that all but maybe 3 of Miller's teams would like most of these pieces. Right. Now, that's a big if. We haven't seen Koloko. Koloko's been great in the 2 times we've seen him, but this is also a kid who couldn't hit free throws to save his life last year. Right. But there's some potential, if maximized, that this team could be very interesting. Now, am I saying that's a Final Four team? No. But it could be a team that pushes Oregon and UCLA, that gets a top 5 seed, that is one of those teams you don't want to see. I certainly think they're a tournament team. I'd be surprised, honestly, if they don't make the tournament, assuming they're eligible, because I just think they have enough talent across the board when compared to all but 3 teams in the Pac-12. They're at worst the 4th most talented team.
Right. So last couple questions here. Jacob Franklin says, how many Pac-12 teams are tournament teams? I look at it right now. I think there's 4. I think Jordan Kuda 23 put out there, UCLA, Oregon, Arizona. I'd probably throw USC in there. Those to me are the 4. And as far as record prediction, I think this team can win 25, 26 games. I think in conference, 13-5, 12-6. I think Oregon and UCLA are clearly the 2 best teams. Right after that, Brad, I think Arizona's got as good a chance as anyone.
Yeah. USC has some nice pieces. If your boy Dana Altman-Crete was coaching ASU, I'd love what he could do with some of those transfers, but Bobby Hurley hasn't shown me the ability to mold disparate pieces. Right. And the rest of the league took a lot of hits. Oregon State brings some guys back. Stanford lost a lot. Washington State and Cal are awful basketball teams. Utah looks terrible. So I think Arizona's going to feast on some bad teams, which is going to help them. They also have a strong enough non-conference so that they can just eke out, what they have. I think they have 6 really good games, pretty good games in non-conference. Right, even if you go like 2-4, 3-3 in those games, Illinois is going to be good. Some of the, other teams are playing in Vegas are going to be good. So I think Arizona, has a chance, and I think they can feast on the lower half of the Pac-12, and if they can just be competitive with, if they could even steal 1 out of 4 against Oregon and UCLA, that's a pretty good run right there.
All right. We appreciate everybody tuning into the AZ Wildcats podcast. Go check out Go PHNX. This is the time to get on there because you got a lot of stuff going on with the Suns, obviously. Got emergency podcasts where they break down everything behind the scene. You've got the Coyotes with Craig Morgan. You got the Sun Devils. You got the Diamondbacks. Anything you want in the state, they pretty much got you covered. And hit subscribe here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Got guys like Brad Allis coming on here. John Schuster's going to be on with me tomorrow breaking down the post game. Brad's obviously got an open invite, he knows, as does Anthony Chimino for any post. And again, really appreciate all of your contributions. Brad, as always, appreciate you as well, my man.
Hey, keep killing it, Mike.
Okay, appreciate you guys. We'll be back with you tomorrow. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.